Hi, everyone. I hope you had a great week. I did. And this week, we're going to start something new. We're going to talk about a quest. And a quest is like a hero's journey where he leaves one world or she leaves one world that she's used to and goes out into another world, usually with the help of somebody else, and travels on a special journey to get something and to discover something, and then comes back again having changed and learned something new about themselves. And we can think of some quests that have been quite popular. One of them I can think of right offhand is Star Wars. The whole series of Star Wars with Luke Skywalker is a quest, isn't it? And he's out to save the whole universe, isn't he? And along the way, he gets a band of people to help him, and like Han Solo and the Wookiee, and who we find out is Princess Leia, aka his sister. So he gets these band of people to help him on his quest to save the universe. And he goes out away from his home and goes on a quest and picks up things along the way to help him. And there's usually a mentor involved, and you know who that would be. The little green guy, right? Yoda. And so this is what a typical quest is like. And so this time we're going to talk about probably one of the oldest quests, or the first quest in European literature. And it has to do with a golden fleece. Now, some of you are going to say, oh, Miss Lynn, I know that story. So good for you. And I'm sure that you can put some comments and let me know some things about that. We're going to take 3 weeks to talk about this in different parts. And today is sort of like a prequel. We're going to go back before the typical story of Jason and the Golden Fleece to let you know, how did that Golden Fleece get started? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that today. I'm going to share the screen so you can see some pictures while I read the beginning of the story. So let me do that, and then we'll start reading. Here we go. Move this down. Okie dokie, here we go. This is kind of the prequel to Jason and the Golden Fleece. Long, long ago, there lived in Greece a proud king who had a beautiful wife named Nephele. Now, Nephele means cloud, and there was something about this fair young queen that made one think of soft pink and gold edged clouds on a summer evening. The king and queen had 2 children, a boy named Phrixus and a girl named Helle, and they brought such pleasure to their parents that the whole family lived each day and night in happiness. Only one thing marred their joy, and it was a strange thing indeed, for in the hot summer days when the sky was cloudless and the air was dry and still, Nephele would grow thin and pale. And then she would leave her home for a long time and not come back until the soft rain clouds appeared in the air again. Now, people said that the clouds were her sisters, and that when they left the sky, she had to travel away with them. But no one really knew where Nephele went or why. As you can imagine, there came a time when the king began to grow tired of his wife's long and mysterious absences. And there was, as well, a beautiful dark-eyed lady in town who encouraged his anger, for she had long been in love with the king, and she saw this as a chance to have him for herself. The lady's name was Ainu, but there was precious little lady in her, for the truth was she was a witch with a strange and magic power. Before long, Ainu had made the king forget all about Nephele and had even talked to him into marrying herself instead. So the king married Ainu. Now, Ainu hated Phrixus and Helle because they were not her own children and because they were beautiful and good. Soon she began to mistreat them in terrible ways. She took away their fine royal clothes and she made them dress in rags. She wouldn't allow them to live in the palace, and instead they had to live with the shepherd's children in a tumble-down old cottage, and they had to work all day long guarding the shepherd's flocks on the hillside. Sounds a little bit like Cinderella's stepmother, doesn't it? But if the truth were known, Phrixus and Helle were really not very unhappy, for they loved to frolic in the green fields during the day. And besides, they did not care much about what they ate or wore. The only grief was the loss of their lovely young mother, Nephele. Nephele had now been gone a long, long while. The sky was cloudless day after day. Not a drop of rain fell, and the fields became parched and dry, and the crops withered away. There was not enough food for the people, and everywhere they were dying from hunger. The king at last sent messengers to the oracle in the distant city, asking what he must do to bring back the food and the health of his people. But his wicked wife, Inu, who was now the queen of the land, saw this as her chance to rid herself of the king's two children once and for all. And so she secretly bribed the messengers that when they returned, they were to announce that the oracle had said Praxis and Helle must be killed before rain would come back again and fall upon the land. Now, these messengers were eager for the gold that the queen had promised. And so they did just what they were told. In a few days, they came back to the king with their false report. So they lied to him. And they announced to all the nobles who were assembled in the palace that only when Phrixus and Helle were dead would comfort and plenty come back to the people of the kingdom, because that's the only time it would rain, and then the crops would grow, and then the people would be able to eat again. The king was very sorrowful at this news, but he knew that he could not disobey the gods. And with Ino's encouragement, he ordered that the sacrifice be carried out with all possible haste. Everything was prepared, and the children were brought from the hills to the courtyard of the palace and decked out in white robes and flowers, as was the custom in those days for adorning things that were about to be sacrificed. Here they were to be tied and placed on top of a huge pile of logs that would soon become a raging bonfire. But just as they neared the spot where they were to be put to death, suddenly there came flying from the heavens a golden fleeced ram, which the gods had sent in answer to Nephele's prayer. Nephele, you see, only seemed to be far away. In truth, she had been watching over her children from above all the while. Quick in a flash, Phrixus sprang upon the ram's back and Helle behind him, and the next minute they were flying high above the courtyard, far beyond the reach of the astonished people down below. Over land and sea flew the golden ram, faster and faster every moment, until Helle became so weary and dizzy in flight that she loosened her grip and from the ram's golden fleece, and she fell down and down and down through the air until she splashed into the water of a narrow sea that they happened to be flying over at the time, and she disappeared and was heard no more. But Phrixus clung to the ram's back, and they flew over the Black Sea until they reached the country called Colchis. There the ram glided gently down to the ground, so tired and weary from his long and difficult journey that soon he expired and died. Phrixus stripped the beautiful golden fleece from the ram's back, and he hung it on an oak tree in a dark forest. And there it was guarded by a monstrous dragon that never slept, neither during the night nor during the day, so that nobody dared go near the fleece. That sounds like some of the other dragons we talked about a few weeks ago, doesn't it? Where we talked about the fact that dragons often were used to guard treasures. And this was a very important treasure, wasn't it? And Phrixus remained in the land and married the king's daughter. And they lived happily together for many years until Phrixus died. So there's King Aeetes, and he's saying, "You, Phrixus, may marry my very precious daughter, Chalciope." And all the time, the wondrous golden fleece hung on the branch of the same oak tree, guarded over by the same dragon. And for many years thereafter, the golden fleece spread the tale, the legend of the golden fleece spread to all parts of the world. No one was able to steal the golden fleece or to deceive the dragon who guarded it. And there's the dragon, another illustrator's view of the dragon guarding that golden fleece. And it looks pretty ferocious, doesn't it? So why was that golden fleece so coveted? That means, why did people really, really go to all that trouble? Why did they want it so much? Well, the golden fleece symbolized wealth and power and kingship and status. So that's why everybody wanted it. They thought, if I could just get that golden fleece, then I could be king. I could have power. People would look up to me and they would say, there goes the king, the all-powerful one, the one that we should adore, the one that people will bow down to. And so that's why it was so coveted. That means why people really wanted so badly to have it. So now next week, we will see what on earth happens to it after Phrixus dies. He was the one that started with it, right? And Nephele was the one that actually gave it to them, because she sent it down there, didn't she, to rescue her two dear children. Unfortunately, only one of them ended up landing safely with it. And so we shall see what happens next week. Okay, I hope that you will comment on the story and tell me how you liked this legend. And then we'll see next week what happens. I have a craft for you to do this week that doesn't really have to do with our imaginary creatures, except it is an imaginary creature. It has to do with an imaginary creature that we celebrate this week, and that is a leprechaun. So if you want, I will put the link to the leprechaun drawing down below, and I hope you have fun drawing it. And if you do draw it, I hope you will share it with us so we can see the fun that you had with St. Patrick's Day leprechaun. All right, I hope you have a fun week. Thanks so much for visiting. Have a nice weekend. Bye.